In this map of friendship, I want to begin by borrowing or starting with a definition Jordan Peterson lays out, which is that a friend is someone who supports the best part in you. And I want to add to that in a couple of different ways by highlighting some of the personas of a good friend and also some of the directions. What is the best in us? What directions really is the best in us? Because it's a continual process as opposed to a fixed destination. Now, I've broken down 5 different roles that a good friend plays. And I want to differentiate the friend from the enabler, because within every human being, we have the best part of us, the part that is most beautiful, most true, most good, referencing Platonic values. And that's the peak, that's the potential in many ways. And we also have coping strategies, addictions, blind spots, things that have allowed us to survive in a dysfunctional and unhealthy environment. And these are not our best parts. They are the areas where our beauty has been sublimated to survive, to the needs of the abuser, to the needs of the environment, to the level of stupidity that we've encountered as we've gone from infant, a time of complete helplessness, moving towards adulthood. And so one of the roles and personas of a friend is a teacher, someone who educates, who draws out the best of in the other. It can also be a competitor in the healthy sense of the word, to draw out the best of, to draw out the knowledge of, to draw out the best of, to compete, to compel that which is within, to bring it out. As in 2 friends deciding that they're both going to quit smoking at the same time, and they're going to have a chat every day to check in about how they're doing, when they're both going to start jogging, and so you have this sense of, I wouldn't do it for me, but I'll do it to win. I'll do it to compete with my friend. There's also a role for the healthy enemy. A good enemy can be healthier than a poor friend, because the enabling or the dysfunctional, the shadow friend, is the part that participates in the constant destruction of our best parts by enabling our lies, by enabling our narcissism, by enabling our self-pity, by blaming everyone else for our problems. This is not a best friend, either to ourselves or to anyone else. It's because the ego divides between the essential self and the coping mechanisms necessary to survive in a dysfunctional environment. When we enable the coping mechanisms and attack the self, we're siding with the addiction, with the coping mechanism. And it may be necessary at times to survive. But that's different than the person who is championing our best sides, our best quality. So one is the teacher. And this dovetails with the confronter or the warrior. The teacher is someone who takes the time to see us. The teacher is someone who takes the time to know us, to track us in a pattern, and to reflect that pattern back, to reflect that pattern back, both the positive and the destructive pattern, to say you get very, very close to getting what you want, and then you do this, and then you do this, and then you do this, and then you do this. And now you're very far away from getting what you want. And you get close again, and then you do this, and then you do this, and then you do this. And so the teacher is the one that cares enough to see and to correlate that and articulate that in a pattern and give it back to us from the outside in a way that sometimes cannot be seen on the inside. So a friend is a teacher. A friend is also a warrior, a confronter. But the differentiation between the friend of the coping mechanism, the friend of our dysfunction, and the friend of who we are becoming, the friend of the essential self, is that the dysfunctional friend will attack and will confront a person when they're getting close to their power and close to the truth. If you've got a friend who's enabling your dysfunction, when you say, I'm looking at the last 10 relationships that I've been in, and there's two or three of those people where I think that if I'd known what I was doing, that if I had been healthier, I could have made a good relationship with at least one of the last 10 people that I was with. And I kind of think it's this person. And I think where I may be going off is in this arena. And the enabling of the dysfunction, the enemy of our growth, will say, no. You're wonderful. You're perfect just the way you are. Don't listen to those people. I like you just as you are. Don't think too much about that. That's just life, etc. And pushes you away from a truth that could empower you to succeed in one of the next 10 relationships. The healthy friend is similarly a warrior that guards and protects something, but what they're guarding and protecting is your potential, your truth. And so when you're starting to talk bad and tell lies and exaggerate certain things about the one person that they've seen you with that could really help you, they confront you and they fight. They fight your coping mechanism to protect your soul, your spirit, your beauty, your truth, your goodness, your potential. They're unlocking your potential by fighting the coping mechanism, and they're challenging you to become all that you can be. They're saying, no, you're actually sabotaging that. And you've done it in this relationship, and this relationship, and this relationship, and I'm not going to tolerate you talking badly, you lying in a way that damages your truth. I don't see that. So there's a warrior aspect of a good friend. And this is necessary because within the framework of the coping mechanism, the survival pattern, is an element of addiction. And addiction correlates to unresolved trauma. And trauma is something that cannot be resolved alone. It needs help. That help can be a higher self, a deity. That help can be an individual person. That help can be a support group, a therapist. Can be an energy that you connect with. But trauma is bigger than the ego because it threatens our sense of survival and coping with the world as an ego. So it requires help. And one of the help that is sometimes needed is the warrior or the warrioress within a true friend. The confronter that says, no, I'm not going to support this. I'm not going to speak that way. I'm not going to stand by silently. I'm not going to enable you. I'm not going to buy your drug. I'm taking a stand. Now, this is the point where the addict turns away from a true friend or elevates the value of that friendship above the people that will enable. There are many people who will go and buy the coke, the heroin. There are many people who will pamper the addictions of emotions within a person's ego. There are many people who will, particularly when money is involved, this is the problem with celebrity and wealth. You can surround yourself, as you can look at our current president, you can surround yourself with individuals who will do anything to enable the addiction, to enable the coping mechanism of survival, which basically means deflect, minimize, distract, lie, do whatever is necessary to avoid painful regions within the psyche and get through the day. All the time knowing that until those painful regions are confronted, integrated, and resolved, we cannot begin to reach our potential. And so as a short-term mechanism to get through the day, everyone needs a coping strategy. But in the period of weeks and months and years over time, that coping strategy that helped you survive the day becomes the single greatest enemy of reaching our potential. And a friend will stand up for the self and support an ego, an individual, in fighting and in challenging and in stretching their coping ability, leaning into it, cutting back on the addiction, leaning into it rather than deepening the coping strategy and the addiction. So there is a confrontation in a good friend. It's not all cheerful and avoidance and let's not talk about the negative. Within every human being, there is a residual coping mechanism, a deterioration point, and there is a point of integration and growth. The warrior takes a stand for the truth and the goodness in each person. Now, there's also a resourcer. There is the persona that is constantly growing. A good friend is constantly developing their own strength. They are developing their body. They are developing their finances. They are developing their knowledge. They're developing their relationship skills. They're developing their contacts. They are developing their future in such a way that enables them to be their best self, and in such a way that can be shared. A good friend is growing and is inviting you to grow with them. Have you heard of this new program? It's helped me lose 20 pounds. Have you heard of this new program? It's cut 10% of my operating costs and my expenses. This is a masseuse who has helped me feel a lot more well-being and energy in my body. There is the element of the resourcer, developing resources and sharing resources. It's a key part in an excellent friendship. The lover is part of a good friendship. Now, in a lover relationship where you're being sexual, that's understandable. But a good friend that may be completely platonic, loves the best part in you, sees the best part in you, understands your essential self, and loves that. They are excited for you to see that develop. A good friend reaches out and helps you to grow, celebrates you as you grow, acknowledges you, and is so excited for you to see you growing, is in love with who you are becoming, with who you can be. This is a good friend. Finally, the celebrator, that out of that love comes, let's take a time to really let that in. Tell me more. How did you do this? Wow, so you were going along and this happened and this happened and this happened, and then, wow, you did that? And then you did this. And now you're experiencing this. How wonderful. A good friend celebrates the becoming of the other. And it's also one of the clearest differential points between the enabler and the true friend. Because the reason an enabler will never sincerely celebrate with generosity the success of their friends is because they are not resourcing themselves. They are not growing. They are committed to not growing. They know that they are enabling their own coping mechanism. They've bought in to the coping mechanism that has kept them alive. They see their own potential and their own truth tellers and their own warriors as the enemy, and they're protecting against truths. And so they're staying small. Now, the need for belonging and the deepest human fear of loneliness, the need for belonging, every human being in the third level of Maslow's hierarchy is the need for love and belonging. One of the deepest fears we have is of being alone and lonely. These two pit together to where if you're not growing and you don't want to lose belonging and love, you have only one choice, and that is to stop the other people around you from growing as well. If you're growing, then you want everyone around you to grow as well. Why? Because, well, let's put it into money terms, because this is an easy, area to understand. If you're going from $100,000 a year to $1 million a year in salary, and as a result, you are able to take more interesting vacations, you're able to live in a nicer neighborhood, you're able to, have access to a variety of high quality of life. You're able to afford going to nice restaurants. Well, if you're healthy, meaning and you don't need to lord it over someone in order to feel important, which those with childhood wounds very well may need to do because, that's what dad did to them. And So, they're flipping the wound. They haven't been able to heal the wound and heal the shame and the humiliation, so they're flipping it. That's what happens with wounds. If you don't deal with them and resolve them, they get paid forward. But if you're healthy and you've resolved that wound and you don't need to be the richest person in the room, then why would you want to have to either separate from all your friends or take care of all of them? Why would you want to either have to buy all your friends a house because they haven't grown, and buy them all a vacation because they don't have any money, they're in debt, and take them out to the nice restaurant because they can't take you there? Why would you want to have weak friends that can't grow with you? And so when you truly celebrate another's success, one of the things you're saying is, I know I can get there too. I know I don't have to lose you. I'm confident in our friendship, and I'm happy to see you grow. And the more you grow, the more you'll challenge me to grow. It's beautiful. The more you grow, the more you'll challenge me to grow. So it's wonderful. And the resourcer ties in with that. It's like, this is what's helped me. Would you like to give it a try? The confronter, this is what has hurt me. This is what has kept me back in the past, and I'm not going to let it do that to you. I'm not going to turn a blind eye as you become deeper and deeper addicted into your blind spots, into your lies. The teacher, I'm going to reflect back to you the patterns that I see. The lover, I love who you are becoming. The celebrator, I celebrate the successes that you bring. I celebrate each milestone. It brings me joy. It makes me feel so happy. Because I will continue to invest in myself. I will continue to invest in our relationship. I will continue to invest in you. I will continue to believe in you, to act as if you can become, to invite you to become, to be happy as you step up to the plate. This is the essence of a true friend. Now, a true friend, you are fortunate. A true friend is one of the most valuable resources on the planet, first of all. In a lover dynamic, where there's a mix, where it's a sexual relationship, where there's a mix of lust and friendship, the friendship is more important than the lust. This is a very important ratio where within any good marriage, you are with your best friend and you have a strong sexual relationship. The best split is around 55-45, where you have these parts of your lover outvote their lust agenda. And here's why. Lust is fueled strongly by adrenaline. It's heightened by risk, variety, uncertainty, mystery, newness. The lust will always be stronger with imagination, with newness, with a creative possibility. The mysterious waiter, the model, the fictitious character in a novel will always be more new, more risky, more interesting than your partner. Hedonic adaptation. Your body, statistically speaking, is not going to quicken when your partner of 5 years walks in the door. Your body is going to relax. I'm safe. This is someone familiar and safe. I don't even need to check in with what's going on here. I already know all this. So there's reduced arousal. There's reduced response. The brain is optimized to detect threats, which always lie in the unknown. The biggest threat that a body can ever encounter is in the unknown. So what is new will always arouse an analysis at a deeper level than what is familiar. Now, if lust is the primary basis of relating, you have a short-lived relationship, and the reason is simple. If you always pursue excitement over well-being, over possibility, over health, over friendship, then there's nothing more exciting than leaving your partner at a dinner date and seeing if you can chat up a waitress and have a quick fuck in the bathroom while your partner is waiting for the first course. There's nothing more exciting than, as you're on your way home, trying to see if you can have sex at 30,000, 40,000 feet in a plane. There's nothing more exciting than trying this and that, or taking the pain to a slightly higher level in a BDSM format. Handcuffs, one whip isn't doing it. Let's have 3 people, 4 whips. Let's add in this element, burnt wax and then whipping. There's always a new level of stimulation. And like any drug, and sex is one of the most powerful drugs, like any drug, the hedonic adaptation pattern ensures that over time, no matter what you do, you will become desensitized to it. You start dating, world-class supermodels, one in this continent, another in this continent, another in this continent. Pretty soon, you've completely adjusted to world-class supermodels. You buy a new Rolls Royce. Your first Rolls Royce is incredible. It's fabulous. Amazing. You press every button. Look what happened when I pressed this button. Look what happened. Well, pretty soon you've pressed all the buttons. You realize you don't want half of them. You got a chauffeur to do that anyway. And you're now back into your phone. What did so-and-so think of me? What did da-da-da-da-da? It's a new addiction. The car disappears. You might as well be in a 1966 Volkswagen Beetle, putting along. It's no different. Oh, and you kind of notice, well, this person looked at me, but no, they didn't look at me. Now you're too busy on your phone, and you can't even notice all the people who are supposedly admiring you. And it fades away. Now, if you go back, it will be startling and upsetting. Oh my gosh, I went from a Porsche to a Volkswagen or whatever. You go back, and it's very upsetting. But the hedonic adaptation principle says that after 3 months, a year, maybe 2 years at the most, you stop enjoying whatever threshold that you've reached, and you go back to a set point. You go back to where you're comfortable, which for many people is being irritable and particularly if they're in an addicted state. All addicts are ultimately irritable because the stimulation is never dealing with the underlying pain they're trying to medicate. Now, if your partner was purchased or secured or contracted with, marriage is a contract. You agreed not to do this and this. I agreed this, this, and this. We can or cannot have sex with other people, whatever it is. Okay, so I've got my partner, and their job is ultimately, as long as you're in pain, you are seeking pain management. So the job is to mitigate my pain. Well, anyone who is primarily secured as a pain management strategy is going to fail. And like any addict, when it fails, when the person fails to alleviate chronic pain permanently, they will be attacked. They will be attacked because now they're the block of the new drug. The body has desensitized to this psychology, to this body. Now it wants to fuck this other person. That's new. Now it wants to go do this other thing. Now to break up the routine. Now the friend, the partner, the addiction becomes the liability. Because in a marriage or whatever, you're not supposed to just run around and have endless addictive experiences. It's actually supposed to be about love, not just pain management. So in that scenario, the other person is now making you feel guilty because you don't want to feel you have an addiction, because you're lying to yourself. This is the domain where if pleasure, if lust, if addiction, if pain management, which are all wonderful things, if the value is 55% for that and 45% for the friendship, the friend in one another is betrayed constantly in order to maintain the addiction. No addict is a good friend. So if the pleasure needs, the lust needs, the addiction needs are stronger than the friendship needs, the relationship will not grow. Everything good in the relationship will be harmed. All the trust will be destroyed. All of the love will be destroyed. All of the beauty, truth, and goodness will be destroyed. All of the possibility to really help one another grow will be damaged. And all that will be left is periodic pain management. Maybe someone will, go off and, have 3 or 4 different affairs, and after all that, then the partner becomes more interesting. Like, I wonder what's happening with my partner now. They get bored of the mistress, or the gigolo, the lover, whatever. They get bored of that. Now the partner is the new pain management, or maybe the partner files for divorce, and they don't want to lose anything because they might want to use them for pain management in the future. And so that, securing that becomes, oh no, you can't leave me. And there's all this adrenaline and fear, and that creates the arousal. It's like, oh good, you still can manage my pain. You just have to threaten to leave me. Now, sex after you threaten to leave me, that's at a whole new level of pain management. It's so exciting. Is this sex enough? I've got to perform and do this. Every little thing I say, every lie I tell, is it going to be enough? I've got to outperform what I've ever done before because I've hurt you more. So I've got to do more to pull you back, and it's more exciting. And it's an addiction. And I'm just using you. And as soon as you're settled and stable, then you're boring again because, I've got to find a new adrenaline rush. So in this dynamic, if the lust, if the addiction, if the usury is stronger than the friendship, the relationship is destroyed and doomed from the get-go. This is one of the reasons if you have sex too early, before friendship is developed and cultivated that it destroys the relationship, because an emotion is released, maybe a care, maybe an openness, and then there isn't the container to hold that safely, so it is violated within 24 hours. And as soon as it's violated, there's now a protection up. Yeah, you're not safe for the good parts of me. So what you want in an ideal relationship is for the friendship to be, say, 55-60% of the relationship, and then 40-45% to be the lust dynamic. Now, this is valuable because, and it's a good mix, because it will mean incredibly passionate and hot sex up to the point where it damages the relationship. Like, oh, I want you like this, and I want to do this, and I want to do this and this and this, but if I have to choose between violating what's good, beautiful, true, what's healthy in you, and what's hot, I choose you every time. You are more important to me than the latest adrenaline arousal cycle. And you will be that way based on strong fundamentals, because I'm intelligent enough to know that a single good friend can increase the probability field, the upward probability field of a lifetime by 1,000%. Even 700%, even 100%. A life shifted and affected by one good friend can be 100% to 1,000% better, sustainably, over time. It's not hard if you have one good friend who is growing themselves, who will confront you when you lie and rely too heavily on your addiction, who will teach you your patterns, who will love who you are becoming, who will celebrate every victory. A true friend who does that can shift your life immensely. Now, there are a couple of sub-distinctions that I want to make that are generally good directions. And I say directions because they're on infinite gradients. So one thing that a friend, and being a friend to oneself, can support is moving from simple to complex. So what's an example? You're getting together with a good friend and you say, got any problems in your life right now? And they say, oh, I've got some stuff, this, that, the other, some stuff. And you say, okay, well, what are they? And you say, well, marital problems. And you say, well, what are those? What are the marital problems? And they say, well, I don't know. I don't know. I just know that we're drifting apart. Well, a good friend will encourage the direction from simplicity to complex. We've already gotten to a point that the symptom is drifting apart in the marriage. And it's not nuanced enough to be able to respond. You cannot respond to something until you see the pattern clearly. So you've got to figure out what's going on. Well, are you drifting apart sexually? No, we still have sex. We're just not talking anymore. And emotionally? Are you drifting apart emotionally? Yeah, I don't really feel very close. Okay, so you're drifting apart emotionally and mentally, but not sexually. These are important distinctions. And when did it begin? That's a distinction in time. How long has it been going on for? That's a distinction in time. Does it have an up and down? What percentage is it going up and down? These are distinctions. Well, at best, we feel about 30% closer than we do now, and that's usually on a weekend, maybe a Sunday. Well, what are you doing then? That's a distinction. So we're breaking down the pattern into more and more distinctions, and a good friend will participate and enjoy that, helping you to become your best self. A good therapist can be a good friend. You can have a professional friend that's doing all of this out of a sincere place. You can have a platonic friend. You can have a lover friend. A good partner will help you with this. My wife just had a dream. I asked her emotionally how old she is in the dream. 14 years old. What are the feelings in the dream? What does that tell you? Is there any area that you relate to this and that? What can you learn? These are distinctions that help us respond. We cannot respond to something until we have it clearly in focus. So another that ties in the same thing is unconscious to conscious. What makes you feel totally and completely loved? What would you like to do before you die? I don't know. No, I know you don't know. So let's work on that. Let's develop consciousness. Let's move in the direction in significant areas of life. Dying, purpose, relationship, values, goals. In significant areas of life, a good friend will help you move from unconscious to conscious while protecting your attention from the latest gossip of this and that celebrity where you're becoming conscious of everyone else's issues but not learning anything useful. From unintentional to intentional. Hey, we're just hanging out again. What's our intention? What would we like to have happen out of this time together? I don't know. Let's just hang out. And there's a place for that in companionship for sure. But the direction of saying, I'd just like to be really relaxed and enjoy our presence together. That's moving from unintentional to intentional and clarifying that. It's a good direction. From disintegration to integrated. Now, Bob, I hear that you say you're working on being on time. You've said that 3 or 4 times this last month, right? Yes, that's my big focus. Well, sounds great, except you're arriving 5 to 15 minutes late to all of our appointments. Well, yeah, what I meant was I want to be on time for work. Well, how are you doing in that? Well, not much better. Well, maybe we should practice. Why don't we start? Why don't we have a bet? Why don't you give me $1 every time you're late? Now, the dollar isn't going to hurt you in any way, but it may get you the habit. Not wanting to lose the dollar, a little psychological trick. Human beings hate losing something. So even if it's $1, they'll work harder not to lose the dollar than they will to break a habit that's killing their whole lives. So a good friend will work with resources. Have you ever heard of a betting resource? Well, let's try it. You give me $1 every time you're late. Or how about $100? Or how about we do this? So how do we create a scenario where you win? Where you're moving from disintegrated, I say, I want to be on time, but my body is late. I say, but I do. I say, but I do. Let's bring them together. And finally, from mediocre to excellence. What's important to you? What are your top goals? What matters to you right now? How are you doing at that level? What got you there? What would be the next level that you could go to? How could you take your marriage to be a 10x marriage? Is there any way you could imagine relating with your partner or your child or your job that would produce 10 times the effect of your current relationship with the same amount of energy? 10 times the value. How could that be done? A movement from intention to goals and from goals to action plan is a similar movement of integration and moving towards excellence. And there's one more role that bridges all of these. And it begins with a question. How can I help? When your best friend is determined to quit smoking, is going through immense grief as they start facing the truth, maybe the truth that they've been sexually abused and have been running from that and this way, and it really hurt them, and it did happen, and they've got to confront and they've got to do. When your friend is going through a positive change from unconsciousness to conscious, from unintentional to intentional, from powerless to powerful. That's another direction. Your friend is saying, gosh, my boss is, irritating me again, da-da-da-da-da. And you listen and you understand, you empathize. And then there's the question. How could you change that around? Do you want to get another job? Do you want to maybe start with your resume? Maybe do this. Do you want to get another job? Do you want to become more fluent in this technology? Do you want to ask for a raise? Do you want to negotiate a boundary? What could you do to start turning that around? What could you do? And what would be the goal? And what would be the action plan? And then what would be the first step from powerless to powerful? Because as you take those steps, you become more powerful. And in doing so, you become more resourceful. And in a healthy friendship, this is going both ways. You take turns championing each other. But the final persona is, how can I help? What can I do that would enable you to sustainably take this step? And a good ratio is 80-20. What I mean by that is the helper in a relationship that is moving in this direction. The help is to nudge the friend, the lover, the partner, to do 80% of the work. And this is one of the reasons I married my wife. When I met her, I had zero intention of having any kind of a romantic relationship. She wasn't particularly interested in a romantic relationship either. But I asked how I could help her. I asked what was going on. I asked how I could help. She laid out some issues. I gave her 5 ideas. I said, why don't you do this, 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 and this for each of these issues? Done. I also said, if you do all that, let me know how it goes. She did it all. Well, that's unusual, very unusual. That's saying she's growing. It's very, very unusual to give someone 5 ideas and have them do all 5. Incredibly unusual. So I think it's so unusual that probably 1,000 dates, and this was a kind of quasi date that I came into the date just thinking how I could be helpful because it didn't seem like a good fit, but she wanted to meet me for dinner. And she did it all. And I said, okay, what's the results? I took 15 minutes. Whew. She spent 4 hours a day implementing. That's a powerful dynamic. 15 minutes, 4 hours a day. Her life, of course, began, skyrocketing. And I like being around skyrocketing lives. It's fun to be used well. It's an honor to be a friend to someone. And, of course, the reciprocity is the gratitude, is the joy. You get to be, there's no one more happy. There's no one more excited. There's no one more joyful, alive, and glowing than someone whose life is taking off. And there's no one whose life is taking off more than that they are truly open and interested in doing work in an 80-20 dynamic where you go to a therapist, for example, and you learn in that 1 hour a week how to shift your whole life. And you go off and do 80 hours of homework that week, shifting that 1 hour, or that you do 8 hours of work that week to shift that, as opposed to you just show up and expect the therapist, the friend, to do the work, or you show up and whine and you expect your friends to listen to your whining and figure out all the whining and coach you, and then you go away a week and then you come back with your new list of all the reasons it didn't work and why you didn't do any of those ideas, and this is incredibly boring. And an enabler will do that. Oh, it's true. It's terrible. I didn't do any of my work either. It's terrible. We're completely powerless. Nothing we can do. And so there's nothing more refreshing than being around that energy. And that was the single biggest pivot to deciding to marry my wife. An 80-20 principle where someone embraces and grows at that speed is just incredible. And it's wonderful. And it doesn't necessarily continue forever. Some people have a plateau. My wife started plateauing around 4,000% skill increase and about 400% happiness increase. And she's relatively comfortable in that terrain, and so there's not the same meteoric growth that there was when we met. But there's still more growth on a monthly basis than at least 80% of the growth-oriented relationships that I've been involved with. And marriage is not all about growth and dynamic response. There's love, there's sexuality, there's the joy of companionship, and that's also very strong. And so it's a rich relationship. But this is the metric to consciously assess a friendship. And of course, one of the best filters is to sit down and watch a video like this, because a good friend wants to be taught and wants to teach, wants to fight for the best and have the best fought for in them, wants to grow their resources, loves who they are becoming and loves who you are becoming, celebrates that success, moves in this direction. And sitting down and watching a video like this and saying, well, what can we do in our friendship to move in that direction, is, of course, an incredibly simple, practical filter and logical thing to do. Because what kind of a good friend doesn't want to pivot from a semi-good friend to an excellent friend? It's fun. This is a rare thing to find, and it may require pivoting out of all of your old relationships to find one person in this domain. It's beautiful, though. I think if I'd had this video when I was dating, I might have sent it out. It's a little bit difficult in Western culture because in the paradigm of chauvinism, masculine energy is valued more than feminine energy. This is the mistake of the Western culture. Masculine energy is valued more than feminine energy, which means that if you take a masculine position, what you appear to be doing in this culture is you appear to be saying, I'm better than you. The mistake is actually at the paradigm level. When you say that masculine energy is better than feminine energy, a lie, then you say that the teacher is better than the student. The teaching asserting, speaking, extroverted, the student receiving, listening, introverted. That direction defines the student in the feminine position and the teacher in the masculine position. As soon as you teach in a Western culture, you appear to be saying, I'm better than you. You appear to be doing that. It's a lie, because you are taking a masculine position in a culture that has bought into the lie that masculine energy is more important than feminine energy. It is way easier to find a teacher than it is to find a great student. Marrying my wife was a no-brainer because she's the best student in this dynamic I've ever encountered. A teacher is useless without a student. If someone doesn't open up and receive and allow and change and grow and heal and transform, the teacher has zero impact, which means they have zero value. The value emerges in the synergy of a good teacher and a good student, in the synergy of a good friend that is giving and receiving, and then, and in a friendship, it should go back and forth. So in this dynamic, it's very difficult to teach, because who wants to say, well, you think you're better than me, you think you know better than me, so that means you're better than me? No. I know this stuff very well. And it's of absolutely no value without someone who chooses to receive it. And so it'd be a little bit difficult. But if you can bring, that's where the value of a third party comes in, because then you're not saying because it's very difficult to break a Westerner out of the delusion that masculine energy is more valuable than feminine energy. So if you bring in a third party as the teacher, then you bypass the delusion that you think that your friend is going to think you're better than them. It's just much easier. And so that's an aspect. But good luck with this, and thanks for spending the time together. It's been nice to piece all these things together that I've been looking forward to in a great friendship, and just be a little bit more clear of what I'm looking for.